When Overwatch was officially unveiled in November 2014, the people over at Volition breathed a huge sigh of relief. See, they were also making a hero-based shooter with characters designed for cosplaying. But they thought they had one advantage over Blizzard. Their game, Agents of Mayhem, was going to be single-player only.
Cue the action music.
Volition has a certain expertise in the single-player genre. Saints Row 3 and 4 are two of our favorite games from the last generation, and a big part of that for me personally is the ability to chill out by myself, which makes it even more baffling that Agents of Mayhem is so uneven. One of the most uneven games I've seen in a AAA space this year. It's sloppy, overwhelming, and unfortunately botches what cool things are present. This semi-sequel / alt-quel to the Saints Row series is bad on its own terms, but it's disappointing due to its self-inflicted comparison to two of my favorite single-player games of the past generation.
You about to get wrecked!
While there are some good gameplay nugs buried inside Agents of Mayhem, what's truly disappointing is the needlessly confusing story and tone. And, quite frankly, for a hero shooter to succeed in the rapidly oversaturated market, the things that make it unique, like the single-player story campaign, need to be spectacular. Since the thing that makes Agents of Mayhem so unique from all the other hero shooters is the presence of a single-player story campaign to the exclusion of everything else, that's what we're going to focus on. The biggest problem Agents of Mayhem faces when setting up a story for its campaign is its huge cast. The game has 12 different playable characters, and at least 5 side characters and merchants, plus all of these enemies. When the game starts, after a relatively stilted and boring cartoon animated cutscene, you are overwhelmed with character after character. The animated cutscenes' purpose should be to act as a narrative shorthand. Surely the homage to Saturday morning cartoons should help us establish who our characters are. Instead, we are treated to characters with unclear motives and relationships.
I ain't dying because of Hollywood's fuck-up. Get in here, pretty boy!
Wait, what? Why me?
It's a confusing way to establish a story that, if we are following the Saturday morning cartoon trope, should be as open and shut as vaudeville or wrestling, with clear, broadly drawn archetypes of good and evil.
Armies of the night, evil taking flight, Cobra.
It's interesting in comparison to the beginning of Saints Row 3, which also has a large cast and a fair amount of cultural shorthand. Saints Row 3 also starts with a sort of media package that is indirectly related to the game. But check this out. Unlike Agents of Mayhem's cartoon, this Saints Flow commercial has a very clear agenda and sets up some story beats for the Saints, such as the satirization of celebrity culture and how to evolve when you become too big of a fish for the still water pond.
Japanese commercials. Easiest money you'll ever make.
Grand larceny's right up there. You ready for this?
No worries. I do my own stunts.
It also helps establish a tone right away. This is a goofy, over-the-top game, yet it is still a game with stakes. Saints Row 3 starts gameplay with everyone dressed as Johnny Gat, and with him a prominent feature of the mission. Killing him off-screen a few missions later adds an anchor to an otherwise goofy narrative. Things can get real. Just look at the emotion communicated on Shauny's face here.
Right on. I'll see you in
Johnny? Agents of Mayhem shoots itself in the foot in more ways than one. Its decision to not anchor the player into one character, to instead allow the player to switch between all characters equally, is a neat gameplay mechanic, sure, but it does not do the narrative any favors. The focus is lost. Here, Saints Row has the benefit of the boss.
You have any idea who you're fucking with here?
Of course.
The boss is a solid foundation for the game's narrative to rest on, and has very clear objectives, usually to establish the Saints as the supreme gang, which lends itself very well into gameplay objectives that are all about completing mini missions to gain control of different sections of the map. It's gracefully simple.
Alright, well if we're gonna bring in the boys, we're gonna need a new place.
You're worried about real estate? We have guns. Let's use them.
Relax, Shandy. We got it all covered.
Simple is not a word that should be applied to Agents of Mayhem. There is no clear objective. according to Volition, the agents of Mayhem are supposed to be bad versus evil, which, as far as I can tell, is never said in the game. It's overall unclear and again, doesn't fit in with the cultural baggage associated with Saturday morning cartoons, which can literally have a blonde, Herculean angel facing off against a skeleton. I like skeletons, and I know I'm not supposed to like this guy. There's room for nuance, sure. X-Men is a great example of this, but a baseline needs to be established first. Agents of Mayhem fails here too. It wasn't until my second time playing through the start of this game that I understood that the probable bad guys of the game, outside of yourself of course, Legion, has essentially already won the conflict for world domination, as in game over. And it was only because I was screwing around in the hub level of the game. Here, this snippet here.
I may be a part of Mayhem, but I'll always have pride in my home country, despite how they were among the first to bow down to Legion.
The UK's gone? And there's more? What? They drop stuff like this in slowly, along with mentions of something called Devil's Night, which I gather is when Legion took over the world.
Those are the remains of my beloved Yorkshire, Lily. She died the week before Devil's Night. Not a particularly good time for me.
Honestly, the world doesn't seem like it's been taken over, making me question what Mayhem is and their purpose in this world. Within the context of the Saints Row universe, is Mayhem some sort of super gang?
A street gang? Hardly.
They don't even say this in the game! This is from the trailer! And that's where more confusion comes in. Agents of Mayhem does not play like Saints Row, which ultimately plays like a lot of other open world games, with an objective centered ultimately around completing various mini-games until you completely clear or control areas of the map. Saints Row has story, character moments, and a fair bit of achievement hunting thrown in for good measure to make it a cohesive gaming experience.
And I can still get high,
you know it.
I can play this guitar like a motherfucking riot.
While Agents of Mayhem has a lot of the iconography and references of the Saints Row series, like the Saints floors, Pierce, mentions of Morningstar, Ultor, Aisha, shit, even Oleg.
Should establish a debate. It could be highly stimulating.
It fails to deliver on what one would expect from a single-player gaming experience, let alone one made by Volition. The entire game takes place inside of Seoul, Korea, but the city itself feels smaller than Steelport. The game kind of makes up for it with its awesome movement, which features a triple jump and ways of traversing buildings that differ slightly between character to character. However, the city itself cannot be captured. There are towers you can fight and win, which supposedly unlock different minigames, but your progress is wiped once you return to the Ark, which you have to do all the time in order to switch up your team. Most of the time, I found the Ark incredibly annoying, since going up to it meant my time investment was about to go up in smoke. This results in incentivizing you to only play through the story missions instead of exploring the world. And these missions can be excruciatingly long, repetitive, somehow confusing, and ultimately lifeless. For example, the typical time for unlocking a new character is about 45 minutes from start to finish, and about half of that doesn't even involve the new character. While gameplay tidbits like movement and attack variety are the standouts in this game, it's stymied in these story missions which tend to repeat themselves.
You brought this upon yourself.
Yeah.
The story itself found in these segments tends to be lackluster. Others have criticized the jokes in this game, which certainly are cringeworthy and absent a lot of the time.
Don't get in my way. I'm hangry as shit today.
But I think the real problem with the story and the game itself falls to an uneven tone. Look, this game positions itself as a fun romp, but it never reaches that point. It's overstuffed, yet also empty. After a while, it feels like the bizarre choice to use these terrible cartoons where the characters' mouths don't even move half of the time. Even though the game is stylistically an A+, it's part of a greater problem. It's a decision by the design team to hide a somewhat competent shooter underneath a lot of flash. The graphics themselves are gorgeous, but I constantly struggled to understand where I was and what I needed to do next. Agents of Mayhem couldn't decide if it wanted to deconstruct the Saturday morning cartoon or embrace it. What's left is a game that just couldn't say no to itself, feeling like several different games fighting for elbow room. By the end of it, I found myself wishing that everyone would just shut up and let me play this game against my friends, which is exactly what you don't want your single-player game to be.
Nailed it!
Thanks for watching! Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a Patreon-supported show. A huge thank you to all the names that you see scrolling right here as you're watching. These are the people who made this episode possible. Also, don't forget, we have t-shirts. They're pretty cool, if I could say so myself. Go ahead and pop on over to Fangamer and check them out if you'd like. If you want to watch some more videos from us, go ahead and roll the dice and click this mystery video right here. Also, this video was edited by Form Factors. Click this link to see some more of their stuff. And while you're here, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? Give a little click, just a little click. Click, click.